The only thing standing between your current salary and true wealth is not your boss, it is your belief system. Welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're here. I want you to take a deep breath and really settle in for this one, because today we are going to perform a bit of open heart surgery on your career, on your bank account, and most importantly, on your psychology. We are diving deep into a text that is deceptively simple on the surface but profoundly transformative underneath. We're exploring the core concepts from Keith Cameron Smith's The Top 10 Differences Between Entrepreneurs and Employees. Now, looking at that title, you might think, okay, I know this. Entrepreneurs start businesses, employees work for them. Simple. But if you think that's what this is about, you are missing the point entirely. This isn't about your job title. This isn't about whether you sign the front of the check or the back of the check. This is about the operating system running in your brain. There is a premise we need to accept before we go any further, and it comes right from the opening pages of this philosophy. It's the idea that financial success has almost nothing to do with the economy, nothing to do with your inheritance, and everything to do with your mindset. You see, you can take a person with a wealthy mindset, strip them of every dollar they own, drop them in a new city, and give them 5 years. They will likely be wealthy again. Conversely, take a person with a poor mindset, someone wired to be a follower, and give them $1 million lottery win. Statistically, we know what happens. They will lose it. They will revert to the level of their mindset. So, the question we are exploring for the next hour is, how do we upgrade that software? How do we move from the psychology of a follower to the psychology of a leader? Let's start with the most primal emotion we all face, fear. In the world of the employee, fear is a stop sign. In the world of the owner, fear is a compass. Smith talks about this difference between risk and security. The average employee is obsessed with security. They want the steady paycheck, the benefits, the guarantee. But here is the deep, dark irony that the book exposes. The obsession with security is actually the most dangerous position you can take. Why? Because you are handing over control of your life to someone else. The entrepreneur, the owner, understands that risk is just another word for opportunity. But it goes deeper than just taking risks. It's about trust. This is a concept that really hit me hard. The text argues that the root cause of staying in a stagnant job isn't a lack of talent, it's a lack of self-trust. If you don't trust yourself to figure it out, you will always look for a boss to tell you what to do. There's this trap called the permission trap. Think about your own life. How often are you waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to start that project? How often are you waiting for a title change before you start leading? That is the employee mindset. The owner gives themselves permission. And this leads us to that famous acronym for F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Let's break that down. False evidence. What does that mean? It means the stories you tell yourself. I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have an MBA. Those aren't facts. Those are beliefs masquerading as facts. The owner looks at those beliefs and asks a power question. What am I believing to be true right now that is actually not true? Think about the power of that question. It forces you to look at your limitations and realize they are self-imposed. And this brings us to the concept of failure. In the employee world, failure is a mark of shame. It's a red F on your report card. But Smith flips this. He says if you stop after a failure, you haven't failed, you've quit. Failure is just a friend who is trying to teach you a lesson. I love the baseball analogy used here because it makes the math so clear. A professional baseball player with a .300 batting average is a superstar. They are in the Hall of Fame. But what does a .300 average mean? It means they failed 7 times out of 10. 7 times they swung and missed, or popped out. The employee mindset expects to hit the ball 10 out of 10 times, and when they miss once, they crumble. The owner understands the law of averages. They know that if they want the yes, They have to eat 20 no's to get there. So, the formula for success isn't magic. It's confidence plus persistence. Confidence is the internal belief, and persistence is the external action. You cannot have one without the other. Now, let's shift our gaze from the internal struggle to the dimension of time. This is one of the most striking differences in the book. Where do your eyes look? The employee focuses on the past. They dwell on what went wrong, they gossip about the old boss, they regret the degree they didn't get. They are driving through life staring into the rearview mirror. And what happens when you drive looking backward? You crash. The owner, by contrast, lives in the future. They are time travelers. They spend their mental energy constructing a vision of where they want to be in 5, 10, 20 years. But, and this is critical, they act in the present to build that future. There is a concept here called the income trap that I want you to really sit with. Most people choose their careers based on one metric: salary. How much will you pay me right now? Smith argues this is the absolute worst way to choose a life path. If you choose a job solely for the money, but the work doesn't align with your personal vision or values, you are setting yourself up for misery. You become a mercenary in your own life. The owner mentality says, does this opportunity align with my vision? When an employee aligns their personal vision with the company's vision, a magical linguistic shift happens. Have you ever noticed this? Some people say, the company did this, or they changed the policy. But the leaders, even if they don't own the stocks, say, my company, we changed the policy. That shift from the to my is the moment you cross the bridge from follower to leader. Why does this matter? Because a vision without action is just a daydream. But action without vision is a nightmare, it's just busy work. You need to look forward. You need to extract lessons from the past, sure, but you treat the past like a library. You go in, you get the book, you learn the lesson, and you leave. You don't live in the library. Now, as we move through this transformation, we have to talk about your environment. There is a brutal truth in this book: you become who you hang around. Smith uses the metaphor of eagles and chickens. It's a classic for a reason. Chickens stay on the ground. They peck at the dirt. They make a lot of noise, but they don't go anywhere. In a human context, these are the complainers. These are the people who gather in the break room to moan about management, about the economy, about their spouses. If you hang out with chickens, you will eventually forget how to fly. Eagles fly high. They fly alone or with other eagles. They don't have time for the noise on the ground. The text tells a story about a high-performing employee whose productivity suddenly tanked. Why? Because he started hanging out with a group of negative gossips. The social gravity pulled him down. So, the rhetorical question for you is, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Are they helping you build a vision of the future, or are they helping you complain about the past? Let's pivot now. We've talked about mindset, time, and social circles. Now we need to talk about the mechanics of leadership. How does an owner interact with people? This brings us to chunk 2 of our deep dive, and specifically, the art of feedback. If you are an employee, you probably dread criticism. You take it personally. But if you are an owner, you know that you cannot build a business or a life alone. You need people. And to get the best out of people, you need to correct them without crushing them. Smith introduces the KSK strategy. It stands for kiss slap kiss, though perhaps a gentler way to put it is compliment correct compliment. It sounds manipulative if you look at it cynically, but it's actually about human psychology. If you just hammer someone with a correction, their walls go up. They get defensive. They stop listening. But if you start with a sincere compliment, you lower the drawbridge. You establish value. Then, you insert the correction, the fix. And you wrap it up with another affirmation of their potential. This requires something that many ego-driven bosses lack: humility. Humility is framed here not as weakness, but as a power tool. The arrogant owner says, "I know everything, do as I say." That owner has capped their growth at the level of their own intelligence. The humble owner says, "I might be wrong, what do you see that I don't?" That owner leverages the collective intelligence of the room. There is a beautiful phrase used: connect before you correct. Listen to that again. Connect before you correct. If you don't have the correction feels like an attack. If you have the correction feels like guidance. And speaking of guidance, how broad is your view? One of the major distinctions Smith makes is between deep knowledge and wide knowledge. Employees are often specialists. They go deep. They know how to code in Java, or how to repair a specific engine, or how to balance a specific ledger. That is valuable, absolutely. But the owner must go wide. The owner needs to understand the big picture, how the marketing affects the sales, how the sales affect the operations, how the operations affect the cash flow. There is a story in the book that I absolutely love. It's about a CEO walking through a chaotic office. Everyone is panicking. And he calmly tells them, "Remember rule number 5. And everyone calms down. A guest asks him, "What is rule number 5? The CEO says, "Don't take yourself so seriously." The guest asks, "What are the other rules?" The CEO smiles and says, "There are no other rules." This is the perspective of the owner. When you are stuck in the weeds of an employee mindset, every email feels like a crisis. Every deadline feels like life or death. The owner, sitting at the top of the mountain, sees that most crises are just Tuesday. They have the perspective to realize that the business will survive. Smith recounts his own experience working at a golf course as a kid. He wanted to quit, but he was terrified that the golf course would collapse without him. His mentor laughed and said, "Son, the business will be fine." That was a hit to his ego, but a liberation for his soul. It taught him that the system is more important than the individual. And that word, system, is the holy grail of the owner mindset. Smith creates an acronym for system: save yourself time, energy, and money. The employee looks for quick fixes. There's a leak? Put a bucket under it. The owner looks for long-term solutions. There's a leak? Fix the roof so we never need a bucket again. This is the difference between being busy and being effective. He introduces the SODA framework for managing this big picture. SODA, simplify. Complexity is the enemy of execution. Organize. Chaos drains energy. Delegate. If you are doing everything, you own a job, not a business. Automate. If a machine can do it, a human shouldn't be doing it. If you apply SODA to your life, you gain back the one asset you can't buy more of: time. And with that time, you get peace of mind. The book argues that peace isn't just a nice feeling, it's a competitive advantage. When you are peaceful, you are creative. When you are stressed, you are reactive. But now, we have to go to the hardest part of the book. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable. It is the concept of radical responsibility. Smith tells the story of his coffee shop failure. He lost $300,000. It took twice as long to open as planned. It was a disaster. Now watch the progression of his mindset. At first, he blamed his partner. He didn't do his part. That's the 50-50 blame game. Then, he matured a bit and took 75% of the blame. But he was still angry. He was still a victim. It wasn't until he looked in the mirror and accepted 100% responsibility for the failure that he was set free. Why? Because if the failure was someone else's fault, you are powerless to fix it. If the failure was your fault, you have the power to ensure it never happens again. He realized he failed to communicate expectations. He failed to vet the partnership. By owning the failure, he transformed it from a noun, an identity label, into a verb, a stepping stone. This is the hardest pill to swallow. When you are broke, when you are fired, when your business collapses, your ego wants to scream, "It's the market! It's the government. It's my bad boss. The owner mindset swallows that scream and says, "It was me. I chose the market. I chose the boss. I didn't prepare." It hurts. But it is the only path to growth. And this leads us seamlessly into the final chunk of our analysis, where we look at the interaction between decision-making and reality itself. There is a pervasive myth in the employee world about job security. We think that if we keep our heads down, follow the rules, and never make a mistake, we are safe. Smith tears this idea to shreds. He argues that many employees suffer from decision avoidance. They are terrified of making a decision because they might be wrong. If they are wrong, they might get in trouble. So, they push every decision up the chain of command. They float. Here is the paradox. By trying to protect their job, they actually make themselves the first person to be fired. Why? Because if you don't make decisions, you have no influence. If you have no influence, you are adding no unique value. You are a cog. And when the company downsizes, cogs are replaced or removed. The people who are safe, truly safe, are the ones who make decisions, even the wrong ones. Because they are the ones driving the car. They are the ones who have impact. This brings us to the difference in the lens through which we view the world. The worker mindset sees the world as rigid. They see rules. They see standard operating procedures. They are obsessed with the how to. Tell me how to do it, and I will do it. The owner mindset sees the world as flexible. They see the world as soft. They don't just see rules, they see possibilities. They don't just ask, how? They ask, why? There is a concept here called bending reality. It sounds like science fiction, but it's just practical psychology. The entrepreneur believes that reality can be shaped to fit their vision. They don't accept no as a final answer, they accept it as a request for more information. They don't accept a wall as a dead end, they see it as something to climb over or smash through. Think about the rule followers you know. They are often paralyzed by bureaucracy. "Oh, we can't do that, it's against policy." The owner says, "Who wrote the policy? Can we change it?" Does it make sense? This flexibility is what allows the owner to solve problems that stump the employee. The employee tries to fit the square peg in the round hole because the instructions say so. The owner gets a knife and carves the peg until it fits. So, where does this leave us? We've covered a massive amount of ground. We started with the internal battle, risk versus security. We realized that security is an illusion and that faith in yourself is the only true safety. We looked at time. Are you living in the wreckage of your past, or the architecture of your future? We looked at your circle. Are you flying with eagles or scratching with chickens? We looked at leadership. Are you connecting before correcting? Are you building systems, soda, or just applying band-aids? And we looked at the ultimate pivot point, radical responsibility. Are you the victim of your life, or the author of it? The journey from employee to owner isn't about quitting your job tomorrow. You can be an employee on paper but an owner in your mind. You can treat your current job as your client. You can take 100% responsibility for your department. You can start building systems. You can start flying with eagles. If you do that, one of two things will happen. Either you will rise so fast in that company that you end up running it, or you will outgrow the container and leave to build your own empire. But either way, you win. The world is full of people waiting for permission. They are waiting for the right time. They are waiting for the fear to go away. The message of Keith Cameron Smith is that the fear never goes away. You just learn to dance with it. You stop waiting for the evidence to appear real, and you start creating your own evidence. So, here is my challenge to you as we wrap up. Pick one of these differences. Just one. Maybe it's the no blame rule. Maybe it's the future vision. Maybe it's auditing your social circle. Pick one and live it for the next 30 days. Because, as we learned at the very beginning, wealth isn't what you have in the bank. Wealth is what you have in your head. And once you upgrade the mind, the reality has no choice but to follow. Thanks for listening.